Yes, I did change my hair color again. Yes, I did match my lipstick to my new hair color because I love it that much. Hi everyone, welcome back, or if you're new here, my name's Destiny, and today I'm going to bring you my July mid-month wrap-up. Full disclosure, I did not think that this mid-month wrap-up was happening. I really didn't think I was going to have enough to talk about to justify this video even existing. Because the first part of July was not a good reading month for me at all. I read very little for the first 2 weeks or so, and then have read a lot in the last 3 or 4 days, which is why this video is even happening. So far this month I've read 11 books, which may sound like a lot, but most of them have been extremely quick reads. However, I've been really lucky that all but one of them have been 4 or 5-star reads. So I'm going to start out with regular novels and novellas, then move on to manga and graphic novels, and finish it up with a couple of nonfiction witchcraft books that I read. The first thing that I read was The House on Abigail Lane by Kaylin Patrick Burke. This was incredible. This is his new novelette. It just came out, and it is a nonfiction style story, though it is about a fictional house. And it follows a 60-year span of eerie, bizarre events that are happening in this house. It was so good. It was so engaging and really incredibly rich. The next book I want to talk about is Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. This is a YA horror story about a girl who, in a desperate attempt to get away from her abusive mother, reaches out to her estranged grandmother, who she's never even met, and goes out and visits her on her farm. When she gets there, she finds a strange woman in an even stranger farm in a town full of people who are extremely suspicious of her family but won't tell her why. So this book is equal parts mystery and horror. However, I definitely do feel like it deserves the horror classification, as it has some very unsettling imagery and some really eerie moments. I had no idea who to trust, and the ending was not something that I would have ever really predicted. But yeah, I ended up enjoying it so much that I gave it 5 stars, and I highly recommend picking it up if you like YA horror at all. Next, I reread The Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan. This is the 4th book in the Percy Jackson series. When I first read this series, this was my favorite in the series, and that still holds true. This has still been my favorite reread so far. I think it is absolutely flawless. I love exploring Nico's narrative. I adore him so much. We get to spend more time with Tyson, which is always a plus, and of course we get a little progress in the Perkabeth situation here, which is adorable and precious, and I loved it a lot. Next, I read Girl, Serpent, Thorn by Melissa Bashardoust. This was absolutely beautiful. It's a YA fantasy about a princess whose touch is poisonous to people, and her family already has a little bit of a tenuous grasp on the kingdom to begin with, so they keep her sequestered away because they're worried that if people know about her poisonous skin, they're going to think that this family has done some kind of devil sorcery. Of course, Soraya just wants to be able to be a part of the world. She wants to find love and to be happy. So when a demon is actually captured and brought to the dungeon under her home, she decides that she's going to go to this demon and see if she can help her break this curse. However, along the way, she finds that sometimes being a monster might have its benefits, and that there's always more to the story than you think there is on the surface. Oh, and did I mention that there's a sapphic romance between her and the demon? Because you should probably know that. Truly, I loved this romance so much, but honestly, the entire book was stunning. The setting was beautiful. I loved the entirety of this Persian-inspired world. I loved the lore in it. Above all else, though, I was just so captivated by watching these beautiful queer girls fall in love with each other, despite literally all the odds being stacked against them. It meant so much to me. I loved these characters, and I'm gonna cut myself off so I don't spend the rest of the video gushing about them. I gave it 5 stars, and I absolutely wholeheartedly recommend picking it up. Next, I read my only 3-star read of the month so far, and that was Full Tilt by Emma Scott. I was actually really disappointed in this, but I still felt like 3 stars was a fair rating. This is a new adult romance between a girl named Casey, who is a new up-and-coming popular musician who's dealing with an alcohol addiction, and Jonah, a limo driver she meets, who is actually facing terminal heart failure and is just trying to find a way to leave a mark on the world with his art before he passes away. While there's some definite chemistry between these characters and the writing was not bad by any means, the characters just fell flat for me a lot, and something about the story just never really fully connected with me, even when it was making me really emotional. Like, I will admit that I cried a lot in the end of this book. It was kind of one of those stories where as soon as I put it down, I kind of just forgot about it. So many people had recommended Emma Scott's books to me, but nobody had recommended me this book specifically. They had all recommended me other books of hers, and I'm starting to wonder if there's a reason for that. I had one other really major issue with this book, and some people would consider this a spoiler. It's kind of hinted at in the synopsis, and it is pretty much acknowledged in the author's note at the beginning of the book, and you see it coming from a mile away. That said, if you are someone who does not like spoilers at all, I'm gonna put like big text right here saying spoilers, and that way you can like mute this until that goes away or whatever. Here's the thing, I'm a very strong believer in the rules of the romance genre, which is that, according to pretty much everyone in the romance genre, it cannot be capital R romance unless it has a happy ending, or at least a happy for now ending. And you can disagree with it all you want, and that's fine. I'm not here to argue with you about it. But if you ask literally like any romance author in existence, they will tell you the same thing. Even though the author in her author note said that she feels like this was still a happy ending, I have a real hard time with the idea that your happy ending is one of your characters dying a miserably painful death at the end of the book. I mean, how is that a happy ending? I'm sorry, but don't market your book as capital R romance if you're going to end the book with somebody literally dying, and then in your author's note say, oh, but I still consider this a happy ending. I don't understand that. I'm sorry, I cannot wrap my head around that. So I'm probably not going to continue this duology. I wasn't really impressed enough with the first book to warrant it. And unfortunately, I'm a lot less excited about reading any of her other books in the future because now I don't feel like I can trust her as a romance author. Okay, no more spoilers. Next, on a much happier note, I finished Beach Read by Emily Henry, and it was probably one of my favorite romances of all time, maybe? Beach Read actually follows a romance author named January Andrews, who has just found out that her late father, who has just recently passed away, had another woman. And he had a beach house with that woman. And now this house has been left to her to go clean out and sell and do what she wants with it. So obviously she's really upset, she's pretty traumatized, and then she gets there and lo and behold, her neighbor at the beach house is her college enemy, Augustus Everett. Gus is a literary fiction author who basically when they were in college made her feel like romance books were silly and like happy endings weren't real and all this stuff. So she's kind of had a chip on her shoulder against him for quite a while. However, they're both experiencing pretty severe writer's block, her due to finding out about her father's affair, which obviously has made it very hard for her to write a happy ending. And so they formed this kind of unlikely companionship where they decide that they're going to make a bet that each one of them has to write a manuscript in the other one's preferred genre. And whoever can sell their manuscript first wins the bet, and they win like bragging rights and everything. It's actually really heavy at times. You end up finding out that Gus is dealing with a lot of trauma from his childhood and then also from his adulthood that have just made it really difficult for him to be happy or to trust people or to believe in happy ever after. And it's just an extremely emotional, wonderful book. In between all of these really heavy, sad moments where you're kind of looking into the dark that they've been through, you also have this incredible banter. If you're like me and you enjoy that really sarcastic, cynical kind of humor, you will love the flirting between these two because it literally feels like Emily Henry just recorded people who are couples actually talking and then wrote that into a book. Like, it feels so genuine to me. Anyways, all in all, this was an absolutely wonderful book. Like I said, probably a new favorite romance book of all time. I'm so happy that I read it. 5 stars all day. Next, I read a couple of manga and a comic book. I read There Are Things I Can't Tell You by Daku Mofumofu. This is an adult romance manga about 2 childhood best friends who have grown up to remain completely inseparable despite being polar opposites of each other. Kyosuke is very confident and kind of a workaholic, while Kasumi is very quiet and timid and unorganized, and they're just very opposite from each other, but they get along great and they care so much about each other. The only problem in their friendship is that Kyosuke has been in love with Kasumi forever, basically. But he's terrified to tell him because he's scared to come out as gay. After growing up with an extremely homophobic father. And we do see a little bit of that in flashbacks, and it is really sad, and it really makes you understand why Kyosuke is the way that he is. Honestly, childhood friends growing up to become lovers is one of my favorite tropes in the world, and I thought this was executed so well. There's a lot of angst and yearning, but at the same time there's a lot of sweetness between them. And on top of that, the artwork was absolutely beautiful. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. It was one of my favorite romance manga that I've read in a very long time, and I will definitely be buying a finished copy when it comes out. Next, I read A Gentle Noble's Vacation Recommendation, Volume 1 by Momochi. This is an adult fantasy manga about a nobleman named Lizel who one day abruptly finds himself in a foreign land. He knows that eventually his king is going to notice that he's gone missing and come looking for him, so he decides that in the meantime he'll just kill time by becoming an adventurer. Of course, he needs somebody to train him and go on adventures with him, so he hires a very skilled local adventurer named Gil, and even though their personalities are so opposite of each other, they become very quick friends, and there are definitely some serious implications that there is more in their future. Also, the art was so beautiful. Like, honestly, one of the loveliest manga I have ever read, and the entire style of the story and the art reminded me so much of the JRPGs that I grew up on and have always loved. I did find out after reading this that this is actually an adaptation of a light novel series by the same author, and I really want to check it out because my only complaint about this, and the only reason that I gave it 4 stars instead of 5, is that we're given a very surface level view of everything that's going on, like with the world building and the characters, and I would have liked more, so I'm hoping that the light novels will actually have more details on that. That said, even if you don't want to check out the light novel series, I really, really recommend this manga. Next, I read Fangs by Sarah Anderson. This is her new webcomic compilation. She is the creator of Sarah Scribbles, which is one of my favorite webcomics, so if you're familiar with that, this is that same author. I will say that this was not nearly as entertaining to me as Sarah Scribbles was. I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be as funny as Sarah Scribbles, but I did expect a little bit more in the means of plot, and I didn't really get that. However, I did still really enjoy it. It is a paranormal romance about a werewolf and a vampire falling in love, and it's just kind of random little tidbits of their relationship and their days together, and it is very sweet, and the aesthetic is very nice, especially with Elsie the vampire, because she gave me major Morticia Addams vibes. And honestly, like, my entire life goal is just to embody Morticia Addams, so naturally I loved Elsie because that's who she reminded me of. But yeah, I still gave this 4 stars. It was really cute. Not my favorite thing that Sarah's done, but I enjoyed it a lot. And finally, I have 2 nonfiction books I want to talk about, both related to witchcraft. The first one was Witchcraft Cocktails by Julia Helena Hadas, and I gave this 5 stars. I am someone who definitely practices a lot of hearth magic, and so I really enjoy cookbooks and recipe books that are based around witchcraft. However, I'm not really that much of a drinker anymore, so I wasn't really sure if I was gonna enjoy this or if this was gonna be the book for me. However, it was fantastic. The entire first section of the book is actually not necessarily about the drink recipes, and it's more about the history of using alcohol in spell work and in witchcraft in general, and the different correspondences with different spirits and liquors, and I just thought it was so fascinating. You could tell it was really well researched. The author is a witch, but she's also a practicing bartender and has been for many years, I think. So you could tell that she really knew her stuff as far as both the alcohol aspect of it and the witchcraft aspect of it, which made it for a very good combination. Also, the recipes, almost all of them sounded absolutely delicious. I am a little bit picky, so a few of them were not really at my alley, but you know, that's kind of a given with any recipe book. And then the thing that I appreciated the most about the recipes themselves is that a lot of them could have been easily made alcohol free, and some of them actually are alcohol free in the book. There is one pumpkin drink in particular that I am going to make absolutely, like, as soon as it gets cool enough to justify, and it's a pumpkin drink with bourbon, and it sounds awesome. And then the last thing that I read was The Complete Grimoire by Lydia Pradas. First, I would like to get this out of the way. Even though the author does acknowledge this in the book, I still think it's worth mentioning. This book is called The Complete Grimoire. No one book is ever going to be the complete grimoire for you. No one book is ever going to give you all the information that you need, because witchcraft is something that you need to constantly be willing to learn more about, and you need different perspectives on. So we'll go ahead and clear that up. However, this book is definitely a good starting point if you are a new witch, or if you're not a practicing witch but you're kind of interested in learning more about it and seeing if it appeals to you. This would be a great starting point because this book covers so many different topics at a surface level. That's the thing though, is that this book is not going to teach you in depth about anything. However, if you want to learn about all these different paths and stuff, it is a really good just base information level for everything. I was actually really impressed by how many different paths and topics the author was able to fit in, from palmistry to tarot to crystals to herbalism. Like, there were so many different paths discussed and so many different types of witchcraft. So as far as rating this book goes, if I were rating it for myself, I would probably give it a 3 because it didn't really teach me much of anything new, but I thought it was a helpful book to have. If I was rating it for a new witch, however, it would be an easy 5. I think it would be a really excellent introductory book. So I decided to just average it and give it a 4-star rating. And with that, those are the books that I've read so far this month. I'm so glad that I've finally been in the mood to read again the last few days, and I'm really hoping that sticks around. I do want to work on my Animal Crossing Island a lot this week, so I'm hoping to get some audiobooks listened to while I do that. But anyways, I hope you like this video, and I hope that you'll come talk to me in the comments. I would love to hear what your favorite thing you've read so far this month is, or if you're struggling with reading, just tell me something that you've been doing for fun or for self-care or whatever. I truly hope that you're all having a good month so far, or at least a bearable one. And I hope that the second half of the year is going to bring at least a few good things for all of us. I just appreciate you all so much, and thank you so much for watching. It really means so much to me. And if you like my rambling and you want to hear more of it, don't forget to click like and subscribe. But yeah, I hope you have a beautiful day, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Bye!